Hello, my name is Natasha, and I'm a customer support manager at Yandex Company Group. And today I'm here to talk about our experience with Toloka ready-to-go solution, especially about sorting and analyzing user reviews in App Store, Google Play, and other application stores. I'm currently in charge of supporting Yandex browser for mobile devices and the Yandex app for mobile devices. And we have been experimenting with these apps. So all the numbers I provide further in my presentation are referring to these products. Also, before I start the presentation, I'd like to make a quick shout out to Sergey Lukakhin and Kirill Terentyev, my wonderful fellow managers at customer care department. They led this project to success with me, and honestly, they did most of the job. So you guys rule. And now on with the presentation. So here is the agenda. First, I'm going to explain why user reviews and application stores need to be analyzed and sorted in the first place. Then I'm going to talk about how we discovered why we need a special approach to the store queries and how we came up to formulating our global goal. I'll also talk a little bit about what difficulties we had with completing this goal and the reasons why it took us several attempts to get the results we were happy with. And of course, I'm going to say a few words about the results themselves and to share some numbers to demonstrate the benefits of using the Toloka ready-to-go solution. So first of all, I'd like to explain why we believe user reviews deserve attention and why we at Yandex see the stores as a legit entry point for user feedback. In fact, if you visit some random app pages in Google Play, say, you will soon discover that in general, it's not a common practice even for larger apps, when the support team or developers team reply to the reviews on a regular basis. I guess the thinking behind it is that users can always find the way to contact the support team directly via email, via chat, etc. Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons why we believe this approach, this thinking is wrong. The first reason is that the application stores are often the easiest way for a user to contribute feedback. Well, we do have multiple ways to contact us, like the chats, the email, feedback forms integrated everywhere, but finding the right feedback form or email or chat requires some commitment and some extra clicks from the user. And we are not entitled to expect that commitment from the users. If thousands of people prefer to leave their feedback in stores, we have to be there to support them. That's just the right thing to do, we believe. Okay, the next reason, it allows you to aggregate and present fuller customer feedback to the development team. I'm going to give an example from my personal practice. In December 2021, we received 4,500 bug reports and feature requests, and 1,400 of them were reported in stores, which is 30% of all the incoming flow of feature requests and bugs. So it would be just crazy to leave this feedback unattended, to leave it behind and not to provide it to the product team. The other reason why stores analysis is beneficial is that it has a positive effect on overall app rating. Say a user reports some concern or doesn't understand how some part of the app works and gives a low rating because of that. But when the issue is solved with the help of the support team, the user might change their mind and correct the rating to make it better. In fact, they do it quite often. For example, according to our rough calculations, in January 2022, the average review rating increased by 0.36 stars thanks to support replies, and that benefits the total app rating too. Also, Also, it creates a positive image for your app or even your company, because people just love when a big company like ours takes the time to reply to them personally and in public space too. We receive a lot of replies saying things like, wow, I did not expect you to reply to this. How nice of you. Thank you. So that's always good. Um, and finally, some issues are simply easier to detect in stores specifically. Most apps have a contact the developer button inside the app itself. But what if a user has trouble installing the app or launching the app and thus has no access to that button? We had quite a few situations like that, and we absolutely wouldn't be able to detect big issues like that and let the product team know that something went wrong in time if it wasn't for monitoring the stores on a regular basis. So with all that said, working with reviews in stores is a big, important business process for support team. And we believe it is as important as supporting users in email and chat channels, if not more. Um, but of course, as any support channel, stores have some peculiarities that we want to approach in a smart way. The major peculiarity here is the content of the reviews. Um, Unlike the regular support channels, reviews in stores are less focused. There is much more meaningless messages in there and much more flood and spam. Also, users in stores tend to provide less details in their queries. So here is a really brief look with some actual review examples. So some people do write a review with a clear intent to solve the issue they have with the app, but others may just let the emotions out. They do have an opinion about your app, and it may be a very strong opinion, but they don't provide nearly enough details for the support team to look into the matter and give some advice. So there are also users who write some obvious jibber jabber or something not related to the app at all. Of course, all of these cases described above can also take place in other support channels, but the key here is the frequency and the quantity. So let me hit you with some really illustrative numbers here. So my team receives 14 to 16K reviews a month, and only 7 to 9K of those reviews are substantial. By substantial, I mean no spam, no flood, no one-word messages, none of that. And we call such reviews difficult or specific reviews. But the rest, which is up to 50% sometimes, are the so-called simple or unspecific reviews. And to reply to such reviews or to close them without an answer, if they don't require it, you don't need weeks of training. Our supports usually receive. You need no inside knowledge of the app you're supporting. In fact, you don't need any information about the product at all. Actually, in theory, you don't even have to be human, because in some cases, automated actions could do the job just fine. So my point here is that these are very easy queries and they require very simple actions. So it would be really inefficient and even wasteful to spend the time of the qualified staff to handle such reviews and to pay for that as well. And thus, our global goal here is to separate the simple reviews from the difficult ones and to manage these two big groups differently. Also, we wanted to create a universal classification that can be used for any app, so we could possibly try this approach with any other product. Before we go any further, I feel like I should talk a bit more what makes a review specific or unspecific from the support point of view. Generally speaking, we consider specific all the reviews that contain concreteness, constructive criticism in any shape or form, or mentioning of any app functionality in any context. But for illustration, let's compare a couple of specific and unspecific reviews. Because sometimes just a couple words can make a difference, and it's important to understand and most importantly to be able to explain it to the Toloka performers. What words can be the key? Okay, for example, if we see a review that says, "I don't like your app," this review is unspecific because the user didn't mention what exactly makes him feel this way. Well, maybe it's the design of the app. Maybe it's about some features missing in the app that user believes are vital. Maybe he has some issues installing the app. Maybe it's not about your app at all, because people leave reviews for their own app more often than you think. But if a review goes like, "I don't like your app, it has no night mode," it's a whole different story, because we can now explain why the user feels the way he feels and what exactly he wants to be improved. In other words, if you can spot both the emotion behind the user words and the reason for that emotion, or at least you can suggest the reason, that makes the review specific. So now that we have that clear, let's go back to my story. Naturally, we made some attempts before Toloka solution, but neither of them turned out to be quite right, because some didn't demonstrate good quality. Some were too expensive or too slow or required too much maintenance, or so it was only logical that we try to use a crowd solution one day. So our first iteration was a very easy project. Basically, a performer was offered to read a review and then choose a category for it. We initially used the categories shown on the scheme. The main benefit we received from that was that we successfully managed to isolate the specific reviews and direct them to our second line, to our best people, most trained, most skilled. About the rest of the flow that was classified as unspecific, well, what do you do with that? Actually, whatever you want. You can either completely disregard them, or you can address them later, or you can forward them to the so-called first line and process them for a lower price, or you can try a mixed approach. Well, you do you. We personally try to turn these reviews into somewhat more definite. For example, if a user says he hates our app but doesn't say why, we try to ask some questions and learn about the reasons he feels this way. So we could give some advice, or at least withdraw some information for the product team to know what needs to be improved. So it all looks good on paper, but the problem was that the real reviews are not as distinct and straightforward as the examples I'm giving at the slide. So performers would often confuse specific and unspecific review, or app has problem and app doesn't work categories, which resulted in quality numbers that were, well, below our expectations, with only 78% accuracy. Also, we found out that there are some reviews that don't fall under these categories at all, or at least it wasn't obvious to their performers. And at the same time, we really didn't want to make the categories broader, because that would complicate the further processing of the unspecific reviews. We were hoping that some of that flow we could process automatically, for example, close flag messages. But we liked the speed of labeling though, and also the fact that we had to do nearly nothing to launch the project, because ready-to-go solutions are incredibly easy to launch for a requester. I wasn't planning to go into technical details of the process in this presentation, but even if I was, there's basically nothing to tell. And the best part is I don't even need to know any technical stuff to run a project. In fact, I can show you how to launch a ready-to-go project like in 3 screenshots. So first you go to ready-to-go page and choose a feed-in option. They have different presets, pre-canned projects for various scenarios. They have video classification, image classification, web page classification, and many more. But we naturally went with the text classification. Then you have to tune some general settings of your future project, like the name, the language, are there multiple choices in the task and so on. And then you need to submit the description of each category with an example and give a good instruction. And after that, you final check the whole thing and you're pretty much ready to go. So considering all that, we decided to keep trying and to work on the instruction and the classification principle. Our second try did much better. We analyzed the previous results and found the categories that were most frequently confused and added some extra categories. This here is a very simplified scheme of what we came up with. I will leave out the background actions such as looking at the number of stars, adding a separate workflow for reviews with ads and referral links and some other, because honestly, the whole workflow with all the nuances looks kind of terrifying. So I will focus solely on the Toloka part. This time, we received much better results with 88% accuracy, but we kind of failed keeping the labeling simple because eight categories are way too much. And a performer would have too much work to do the reading of the descriptions and examples for all of that. So on the other hand, we were happy with the extra categories we received because the quality increased, the sorting became more flexible, and we were able to apply automated actions to some unspecific reviews more precisely. In fact, we wouldn't mind adding a few more categories to have even better control. And actually, we did, but with a major difference. We made the labeling two-leveled. At the first level, reviews are divided into very large categories based on their tone, mainly. And then every category is sorted once more on the second level. The workflow is a bit more complex because we actually use 4 projects in a bundle to get the final results, 1 on the first level and 3 more on every secondary level. It may seem complicated, but in fact, it's not. In fact, we discovered that it requires nearly no maintenance from our side. Some of the categories, as you can see, are repeated in different projects. So that's actually okay, because this way we're leaving a loophole for the cases when mistakes were made on level 1. And just like we expected, it takes a bit longer to complete the labeling, but the target time of 2 hours, 120 minutes, is still intact. That's more than enough for us. And most importantly, the quality is higher than ever with the impressive 93% accuracy. We are very happy with the current results, and we are running some tests at the moment. Our further plan will be to extend the experiment and apply this flow to other Yandex applications as well. I hope you find our experience useful. And I feel like that you can actually customize this idea to fit various business scenarios, because thankfully Toloka allows to retrieve the labeling results in JSON using API. And if you use any ticket system or any platform for stores analysis that works with API, like AppFollow, for example, you can easily use this JSON to separate the unspecific reviews from specific ones if you simply put this data, say, in a table and use a map or a script to sort the table you received and to create the filter you need. But even if you don't consider analyzing stores on a regular basis, there are still scenarios that can come handy. Say you see a negative trend in app rating and you want to look closer into why this happened and to analyze reviews several months back, which is a lot of data. And to help yourself, you can perform a one-time analysis to avoid looking through certain categories of meaningless reviews. Or you can discover that there was, for example, a spam attack on your app, which happens quite a lot, and quickly detect all the spam reviews and report them to Google Play right away, so they would be deleted. So long story short, the possibilities are very wide, and I'm sure that you will find a way to use Toloka solutions to take your stores under control. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your attention.